universal elder, and so forth. And the purpose of today's video is to go ahead and discuss a very noted person in Wake County, North Carolina. His name is David Harris, and to sort of review the public policy and legacy that he embarked on. Mr. Harris, when I came to know him, was working at the South Wilmington Street Shelter for Men, subsequently called, turned the name over to Center for Men. And under Urban Ministries, he was contracted employee. He ended up going to furthering his career with Wake County government, and is heralded as the great homeless leader. Here's the thing: is that when you are discussing public policy and the homeless, it's got to be real. It's got to be something down the heart. And Mr. Harris sort of departed from that as he grew, in terms of knowledge, in terms of getting his degrees and credentials, and getting a title and so forth. When the shelter first opened up in Wilmington Street, 1420 South Wilmington Street, it was a very diverse place. A lot of different populations came over there. The workforce was diverse. A lot of open and competitive hiring. You had people from jails getting hired. Substance abusers who got on track and cleaned up their lives, they would be hired, and a lot of good was going on. But then it changed. The Wake County government decided to go ahead and work on building a big shelter, a modern facility, back in the 2000s. And they did that, but they needed the help of Urban Ministries. Urban Ministries is the purse, so to speak. He had a lot of donors who were interested in helping and serving, needy populations. So Urban Ministries had contact with those donors, and Urban Ministries was able to go ahead and secure the funding, most of it, for through charitable donations to make this shelter. Here's the thing: once the shelter was built, Urban Ministries got kicked to the side. Now, all this is my personal perspective, based on my education, knowledge, and so forth of what transpired. It's my opinion, and I'm entitled to my opinion. So, Urban Ministries helped to build it, and they had a lot of interesting programs and people who were willing to donate their time to help. And they got kicked to the curb once it got built. They should have had something in the clause of any type of contract. We will be here for at least 5 years. But that is not the case. So the shelter gets built. Now here's the transition period. When it goes from Urban Ministries to fully Wake County owned and operated facility, David Harris, it was under the auspices of David Harris. And that's where things got bad, from my perspective. You had things like grandfathering in sex offenders, low barrier shelter policy. So here's the thing: is that subsequently there was a cigar shop factory across the street from the shelter center, and got converted over to a resource for the families. Well, here's the thing: you had a shelter right next to, within 500 feet of a family center. Now, if anybody knows populations of the shelters have substance abusers, felons, people fleeing the law, all different types of diseases. It's really bad. But what ended up happening is that Oak City opened up right next door to it, And one of the first issue points that I had with David Harris and Lorena McDowell and so forth in Wake County was, how could you allow a family center to be opened right next door, where on any given day you do a computer search and you find a list of sex offenders that are housed at the center? South Wilmington Street. How could you do that? That's totally against public policy. But that was allowed under the Harris administration and Lorena McDowell. There's another thing that was allowed. North Carolina has a statute, and it says, hey, look, if you threaten a government employee, that's a crime. Now, Lorena and Davis Harris came up with this wonderful concept of low barrier, meaning that in practice, that government employees that working at the shelter could be threatened with bodily harm, and no action or reaction would be initiated from the county or the worker, or it was prohibited for the worker to be initiating action. Now, the state, mandated through its laws and its legislation say, no, government employees can't be threatened. But here the shelter came up with a policy, a second fundamental policy. Remember, the first one was the whole, hey, look, sex offenders right next to family center. Totally crazy. Second is a policy of this is that, hey, look, guess what? If you come use the shelter, you can threaten the government employee. You can threaten any worker there. Wow. Low barrier. Intelligence. The biggest thing, also, one other policy is this, is that local, state, and city policy is generally that there is no weapons, drugs, so forth on government property. Now here's the one that has caused the most deaths in this scenario through this legacy of, I would call it criminal negligence, is that then people are able to enter the center and sell their wares, sell the drugs right there and then. And so that low barrier included sales in the facility and use in the facility. Pretty high tolerance towards it. So it's like, wait, wow, how could you do that? Because here's the thing, homeless people seek a safe place to sleep for the night, and or the day, and or the week. And so think about it like this. What about if that was your loved one? What about if that was your dad? What about if that was your neighbor? What about if that was your friend? What about if that was just a human being? Would you be content with knowing that they could stay at a place where the drugs would be sold and used right on the premises? So here's what happens. A high rate of overdoses and deaths happen at the shelter. So the rate skyrockets, all under the auspices of then the legacy of David Harris and Lorena McDowell and the other leaders of the center through Wake County government. I don't know how you feel as a person, and if your philosophy or ideology is this: a shelter shouldn't matter, they should be able to use drugs there or not, depending on if they want to. That just goes against every principle. Here's the thing: when Urban Ministry had it, they were working on safeguards. They were working on things to go ahead and promote good at the center. They had volunteer nurses come in, they would check the guys for TB or illnesses and so forth. That's the other thing you don't find anymore in the Wake County government. You don't find that individuals working, using the center are required to go through any health screening. So here you have COVID outbreaks during COVID time, entire dorms being locked down, and that's just crazy because if you had gone back to the way in the path that Urban Ministries was going, and that was to go ahead and have people on the regular. When I worked there, poof, dude, I got tested so many times with tuberculosis. Oh my God, I just got so because anytime someone came in, we all had to get tested, and it was crazy. But the thing is, it was a measure of safety. When you lack those measures of safety, when you don't even partner with the health services, doctors, medical professions, and you don't have volunteers coming in to screen these guys, to check these guys, and they all in big rooms, sleeping one on top of the other. The other things is someone had the bright idea of putting in lockers inside dorms. I don't know if you understand the concept. These homeless people have bags of stuff. A lot of that stuff hasn't been washed, and a lot of that stuff is not clean. A lot of those things carry parasites. I would have thought when you built the center, you would have had outdoor locker space where the guys would be required. Your personal belongings go in these lockers that are outside, wherein your little parasites and friends could marinate and have all the parties that they want outside of the center. Not bring bags with, these guys, you know how they are. Have them wash their clothes or biohazards all by themselves. They cough on you, you don't know what they got at all. And so you talking about spores, you talking about bed bugs, and there's been bed bug outbreaks and a whole lot of different outbreaks over there. COVID outbreaks of RSV and everything's been outbreak. But the biggest thing is this: is that the heart. I'm just making this video is this: the legacy of David Harris includes the fact that now people are not using the center as much as they used to. They're not getting the services that they need, the screenings and so forth, and case management as they need. And what you have as a result is these outlying counties and cities uninundated. I went over to Walgreens in my neighborhood. Dude, just taking out stuff from my trunk. There's two homeless people right there. Like, holy guacamole, dude. And it's like going to Food Lion in the supermarket just to get some food. Homeless people right there. That used to never ever in 20 plus years of living in this county, in this city in particular, never saw the homeless at Food Lion. But because of the failure of planning, they took away, there's high-rise developments that came in Raleigh, and they took away the homeless camps, but you didn't replace it with anything. So the homeless went to the outlying cities, and now it's a problem in the cities. It's not just a Raleigh problem. Now it's a Apex. Now it's a Cary. Now it's Wendell, Knightdale. It's all these other cities where you never saw that stuff. All of a sudden are inundated with, and that's not to say we're not in an epidemic. We're in a drug epidemic mode. So you're in a drug epidemic mode. Why would you allow fentanyl and all these drugs to be used right in the center? Okay, people dying right there, your loved ones, or your friend, or that human being dying right there. Why? Because of low barrier, low standards, and it's absolutely against public policy. So especially when you have state laws, don't threaten an government employee, and then you have policymakers there like David Harris and the Franks and so forth making these policies, Lorenas, That's just crazy. This is my 2 cents, my opinion on the David Harris legacy. I wish him well. Don't ever wish anybody well, but I'm thinking that Wade County has to go back to a partnership uh, with the faith-based communities. That the faith-based, if you can't afford to have volunteer doctors come in, they used, urban ministries used to run the clinics and so forth. Go back to that stuff. That's what I say. I think, my personal opinion. And stop the deaths. Don't let government employees be threatened. And that's it. You have administrators at the center like Frank Lawrence who just allow that stuff. Take care.